McOverrated. Not. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Thursday, June 5th, 2025. I'm sorry, Greg, but I had to steal your line, steal your column, Mr. Cody. McOverrated? McOverrated after that game last night. Stanley Cup finally got underway after what feels like it's been, 2 to 3 weeks since we last saw a playoff game in the NHL or the NBA. We now start a series of weeks where we will have what could be two fantastic playoff series or what could be two 4-game series. That's the beauty of these matchups. It is a rematch between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Before I get into the fact that, yes, I stayed up, obviously, does anyone go to bed when it's a one-goal game in the third period? That would seem crazy to me because the dream is to get to overtime because NHL playoff overtime, that's it. That's the pinnacle of sports fandom. The way these two teams played in the first three periods, the back and forth, just the intensity, the skill, the skating, the defense, just every part of it. 3-1 lead for Florida after a 1-0 lead for Edmonton. You're thinking, oh, God, 3-1 Panthers, here we go, Edmonton. Quiet as a church mouse. Then Edmonton scores, then they score, and then they're just playing where with about 4 minutes left in the third period, you're in overtime already. You just have that feeling, empty net goals notwithstanding, and then the third period ends, and it's not like the NBA or the NFL where overtime closely follows the fourth quarter or the fourth period. It's fourth quarter, I guess, in both. Oh, no, in basketball, whatever. You go into overtime, but not hockey. You get a full intermission after the third period before overtime. So hey, wouldn't mind a goal here at the end of the third, especially if it's our pick of the day. Let's get the Panthers, do a walk-off goal, bing, bang, boom, good. Nope. Go through overtime. The whole routine that you did after the first period, after the second period, you do it again after the third period. Then overtime starts, and they're playing, and you're starting to think to yourself, this couldn't be that game, could it, Coca? And, of course, I didn't Google it last night, didn't prepare for it this morning. That game that I once watched, I don't know how many years ago, playoffs, it went to like 2 a.m, 5 overtime periods, total insanity. I have no recollection of what year, but it was not recent as far as I can remember, because I remember being much younger, so much younger that I can't remember what year. But anyway, you're settling in because when there's 2 minutes left in the first overtime, you're like, oh, there's going to be a whole nother intermission. And then with about 35 seconds to go, because hockey's the greatest sport ever, it just happens one time. Draisaitl scores, second goal of the game. Oilers win. Crowd goes crazy, fatigued but excited. And the Oilers take a 1-0 lead. I wasn't going to talk about this because I wanted to talk about something else, which I'm going to do right now, actually, Coca. Well, hold on. One more thing. Do you know how cool it is to see the Oilers and the Panthers in a rematch of the Stanley Cup? People talk about in leagues, God, we'd spend time on this inside owners meetings. We want everyone to have the opportunity. We want there to be parity in our league. And so we explain that when there are different people winning World Series or in the World Series, that means that is a good thing. I seem to have a different view. Watching the Oilers when they won the overtime game, improving to 5-0 in overtime, I remember thinking, and this was only a couple hours ago, that how lucky we are to watch the development of this type of rivalry, knowing that it just doesn't happen all that often. So, as an example, it's been since 2008 and 2009, which seems like yesterday, but it's not because this is 25. So 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, last time it happened. I don't know if you remember that, but the Penguins and Red Wings played back-to-back Stanley Cups, and they split those Stanley Cups. And then you have to go all the way back to the 80s. Now, if you haven't looked, about 60% of you do not know about this stuff because of your age. But go, and that's not me being ageist, it's just me giving you the demographics. Please go Google right now, list of Stanley Cup winners and who they played. It will blow your mind, the dynasties that existed in hockey. Go look at the Canadiens dynasty. Go look at the Edmonton Oilers dynasty with Wayne Gretzky and Messier, etc. Go look at the dynasty that existed with the New York Islanders. Holy cow. So you go all the way back to the 80s and you had Edmonton and the Islanders play back-to-back in 83 and 84. They split. So it seems like when teams play each other back-to-back, there's going to be a split. Advantage Edmonton. But if you go to the 60s and 70s, the Canadiens swept the Bruins and the Blues back-to-back. 68 and 69, the Canadiens played the Blues twice in a row. 77 and 78, the Canadiens played the Bruins twice in a row. And the Canadiens won all 4 of those cups. It just doesn't happen often. There's not enough statistical analysis to go on because there were a bunch of sweeps. The most recent back-to-backs were splits. So it's not the end of the world losing game 1 if you're a Panther fan. It doesn't guarantee you're touching the cup, McDavid, because you won game 1. But it certainly is the beginning of what should be an interesting story that will more and more be on the ice. You're going to hear more and more talk about Connor McDavid and more talk about the number of assists he has. You're going to start seeing him being compared to Wayne Gretzky, who in his heyday with the Oilers is Jordan, hard stop. You're going to hear that if McDavid gets 5 more assists in the next 6 games, he will break a record held by Gretzky that seemingly should never be broken, much like the goal score that Ovechkin just broke, which I guess makes me think that all of Gretzky's records will eventually be broken, although the assist one seems impossible, doesn't it? But McDavid's just been unstoppable with 2 more assists last night. Think about what he's done. 56 assists in the last 2 playoffs. It's really quite incredible to think about. This is legend-making time for Connor McDavid. This is his moment where he has a chance to start his legacy. And I'm going to get a lot of pushback from people in Edmonton. And I grant you that my view is Patrick Ewing is the greatest player of all time. You have to put that aside because Patrick Ewing doesn't have a ring. And my true belief is there are rings required in order for you to be the greatest of all time. In a team sport, your team has to win it all. And there's a lot of factors that go into winning it all. You need offense, defense, special teams, goalies. You need pitching, speed, all of it. However, you know me, rings matter. McDavid right now is ringless. If he happens to win this year and beat the Panthers, it doesn't matter whether he wins a 2nd Stanley Cup or a 3rd or a 4th. He will be a Stanley Cup winner. That will be the first thing on the resume, on the legacy, on the plaque, because winning the Stanley Cup is the greatest of all achievements in hockey, if not in all sports. So you'd think that Connor McDavid has this weight on him because they don't want to be swept by the Panthers twice in a row. He doesn't want to go another season without a Stanley Cup. It's not that he's old, but he's not getting younger, quite obviously. He's not old at all, but will be. Father Time will win. And so watching the Oilers win that game in overtime last night, what I saw on their face was not joy. They were smiling and hugging each other, and et cetera, et cetera. But what I really felt and saw was this feeling when a weight lifts off you. Because remember, they lost 3 in a row to the Panthers to start last year's Stanley Cup. They then won 3 in a row to force a Game 7 in Florida, which they lost. If Florida starts off Game 1 of this series, you start to think to yourself, oh, God, here we go again, and we cannot come back from 3-0. It's only 1-0, but we cannot then lose Game 2 because all of a sudden it's 2-0, and now we're right back where we started from, Maxine Nightingale. So what I saw in their faces was this feeling of where you just release all of it. And it could be go time now for the Oilers. We'll wait to see. The other thing that came up with the Stanley Cup that merited some attention, if you don't mind, is a conversation that fans are having about income tax, and they're having it without any knowledge of the actual impact of a state with no income tax and what that impact has on building a team. I feel as though I am well versed to discuss this with you because I ran a team that had no state income tax. And I would like to explain to you exactly how contract negotiations went with players in a non-salary cap world in a state with no income tax. We would present to players, look, you're being offered, so we understand, $10 million by the Yankees. Well, if we offer you $9.2 million, it will be the same net for you because of the difference in Florida, no state tax, and New York with a state income tax. The agents would say to the player, well, that's true, you would be in the same position, but the record will reflect that you took a contract at $9.2 million. For someone in your position, we want you on the books at $10 million. Because when you are doing comps in arbitration, when you're doing comps in free agency, there is no accounting for net income. There's no accounting for what the tax rate is of an individual player or whether they've got losses in other businesses that they can use to try to lower their tax obligation with their W-2 income. There is no conversation we have with players. So tell me, are you good at day trading? Because if you're not good at day trading, guess what? You can take all those losses and you can put them against this contract that we're giving you, and boom, you are going to be in a better financial position. It doesn't happen that way. The only thing that happens when you are negotiating with players and free agents, and what happened with Carlos Delgado in 2005, is he said, hey, overpay me and I'll come to Florida. So we did. But I don't want to lose $1 when you trade me, which I suspect you will. And we did. So therefore, I want a provision in my contract, which is called the tax equalization provision. A tax equalization provision means that the acquiring team, the Mets in this case, had to give Delgado a gross up in the amount of money he was owed in order to make up for the taxes he would have to pay by playing in New York versus Florida. So when you're negotiating to trade a player who has a tax equalization provision, you negotiate with the other team. You fully disclose what this tax equalization provision is. You don't have to, but you do. Side note, Coca, the way that works, just so you know, it is not the responsibility, and this is strange in baseball, it is not the responsibility of you to tell your trading partner what contractual provisions exist in the player you are trading, because we have access to every player contract on every team. So it's our job in due diligence, if we are trading for someone, to look at their contract and see whether they get a free suite, whether they get free parking, whether they get tickets on the road, whatever it is they get, our responsibility to look at. But the state income tax in a salary cap sport is even less meaningful because the teams all have the same amount to spend, and what you're supposed to do is evaluate your player. If you have a player that you believe is $8 million, you do not pay the player more than what you would mark that player to market simply because they're in a better tax position on your team. Because the way the salary cap works is whatever they pay is to the player is what is reflected in the cap. So if you went to a player and said, hey, do you want $8 million to play for the Panthers? And that player would say, well, no, I really would like the $9 million to play for the Rangers, and you point out those are the same things, well, that player gets to decide what city he wants to live in. In theory, he has two equal offers, and the Rangers are not at a disadvantage because they've paid the guy $9 million and we'd only pay him $8 million because they would value that player at $9 million and we wouldn't. If we valued that player at the same $9 million, we would offer him the $9 million that the Rangers would offer him and say, dude, sign with us because we offer you the same amount of money, but you're going to make more if you choose to live in Sunrise versus Westchester. So players go through that exercise in their mind where they want to play. They do the math about their net income. But I would not agree with the word out there about state income tax as being a dispositive factor that players are using. The most important factor that players use choosing a team to go to in free agency is who's going to overpay the most. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, has a job to do 4 times a year. That job is to be the steward, the chairman of the board of MLB owners meetings. That job is to conduct owners meetings, both large and small, committee meetings, pop in, say hello to the committees, see how we're doing, have a dinner, host a meeting. Then the responsibility is to meet the media while the media waits patiently by in the lobby of a particular hotel in a city or in the lobby of the building where Major League Baseball has its offices on 6th Avenue. The media waits in the lobby, and then Rob Manfred calls him in, has a little press avail. It's always fascinating to hear what he's going to talk about. And he spent quite a bit of time talking about quite a few subjects yesterday. And I want to start with the automatic ball strike challenge system. Coca, I gave an interview, and I don't know where. It may have been on CBS Sports. It may have been on a radio station. It may have been on Nothing Personal. It may have been on Dan's show. I just don't know. I said something that Rob completely went against. What I told people and what I will tell you is that my experience has been that Commissioner Rob Manfred does not like implementing rule changes in the face of players. The collective bargaining agreement allows him to notify the union of a rule change, and if the players don't agree to it, there's an ability to implement that rule change 1 year later. The collective bargaining agreement signed back in 22 changed that provision, which allowed the commissioner to implement things after a waiting period not of a year, but of 45 days. But it has always been the case that the final year before collective bargaining and when the agreement was going to run out, and that is next year, the commissioner didn't like implementing anything so as not to cause any, shall we say, rockier paths toward an agreement. And as you know, in your own life, when you get something forced upon you, it's harder to embrace than when it's something that was either your idea or something that was a collaborative effort. So what Rob came out and said is, be warned, we may implement the ABS for 26. I thought they wouldn't do it until 27. Let it go. Let it be part of the next CBA. But he said, I think we're going to pursue the possibility to change this process. We'll see what happens. But I've gotten great feedback from the players. So here's how that goes. What goes is you have a competition committee meeting. The competition committee, that one that I used to be on, now has players on it as well as team representatives. However, the league controls the committee. The league has 6 members on it, which is a controlling amount. And believe me, those 6 members vote the same way. Which means that you can bring something to the competition committee like the pitch clock. You can bring something to the competition committee like a challenge system for automatic balls and strikes. And the players could all vote against it, and it could still pass the competition committee, and it can become a rule. So why is it that Rob would say right now after an owners meeting, listen, folks, and he's talking, make no mistake, when he's meeting the media, he's talking directly to Tony Clark. When he sits with Tony Clark, eventually at the table, which comes long after the deputies sit at the table, that's that Bruce Mayer and Dan Hallam, when he gets to the table, he has it extremely in his head what he wants to accomplish on every topic. It is the most organized negotiating you've ever seen that Rob Manfred's done. He's been doing it for decades. And the reason that he chooses to do it that way is it leads to victories just about every time. So when he sits there and tells you, I think we may go for ABS, and by the way, players haven't had a problem with that. Players have all been saying through spring training, this is a system they like. It cuts the legs off the argument of Tony Clark at the table saying, when they go to the table next year, hey, you did that. We were furious. That was unacceptable. That's not the way to treat a partner. But guess what? If you've got the this is crazy to say, but it really is true. Players have to be so careful because we're listening to everything. If you've got players who you know are not going to fight something, and you know it's only the people at the negotiating table who are fighting it because they have to fight everything, we ignore that as management. We give that zero credibility. We don't make a trade for that. Oh, you want to give us the challenge system? All right, we'll give you a couple extra pennies in your retirement pension fund. We don't give anything when we know we have player support because we know that the negotiators are just bluffing. So you have to be very careful. I have a wait to see that's pending on this, Coca. Did you know that? When is it? Back from 2024, I said ABS is going to come in 2026. That'd be a good wait to see to follow up on. Rob Manfred also took the opportunity to talk to, in addition to Tony Clark, he had the ability to talk to Jimmy Pitaro and Bob Iger. Bob Iger, the chairman of Disney, Jimmy Pitaro, the president of ESPN, talking about the broadcast deal, that $550 million that was opted out by MLB. You, of course, know that Rob didn't miss an opportunity to gain an opportunity to let ESPN know, thanks for the memories, but we're doing just fine. We are good to go. It was really not necessary for him to bring up, but to have the ESPN powers that be hear the truth. Major League Baseball is negotiating with different people, different linear. We talked about this, whether it's NBC, Apple, etc., all for the purpose of getting to above $550 million. And what I love that Rob did, because it's what you do, executives ought to pay attention, under promise and over deliver. Do that in your relationship. Do that as often as you can, because the world is full of people who overpromise and underdeliver, and those people end up getting fired. Those people end up getting left behind because no one wants to be let down all the time. Underpromise, overdeliver. So Rob is saying, listen, we're about reach. I'm going to overweight reach when he's talking about the deals that he wants to make for the next 3 years in the absence of ESPN. We know that people who say we are overweighting reach, those are like the NBA owners who did over-the-air deals for their teams when the RSN went bankrupt. And they said, but wait a minute, we are now in front of 5 million more people in our market. Isn't this great? And we told you on Nothing Personal. That's really sweet to say that you care about reach. The fact is that you didn't have any better deal financially from the network, the regional network. So in the absence of money, you say, we love you, fans. We want to get our product to as many people as possible. By Rob saying that he would overweight reach when he talks about these next deals, there are people who will say, well, that's preparing everybody for a deal that's less than $550 million. Yeah, we were sorry that happened with ESPN. We set up new deals and it may look like less, but man, oh man, did we get reach. Wait till they sign the deals that are for more than 550 and more reach. That is the type of game that MLB is playing here, because it's the right to ESPN. Just you wait. Just you wait. Rob's gotten a bunch of credit and a bunch of issues for the Pete Rose situation. You heard it here on Nothing Personal when Rob Manfred brought Pete Rose off the permanently ineligible list, and did it by taking all the dead people off the list, saying, once you're dead, you can't hurt the game. You cannot impact the game. So therefore, you should be off the permanently ineligible list. Permanent means the end of life. Now, our criminal justice system will give you 4 consecutive life sentences for killing 4 people, so that every family gets to feel as though, yeah, this guy got or girl or person got a life sentence for killing my family member. Of course, we all know that consecutive life sentences. Coca, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm not taking a break. I was just reminded of something. Did you read where a guy who was sentenced to life in prison, died, but then was revived and wants to convince the court that because he died for those few minutes, that therefore he has served his sentence, which was life, and now he should be out of prison. I thought that was a brilliant move by Saul. I assume that was his lawyer, Odenkirk. I'm not positive, but I thought it was fantastic. Maybe we need to codify language that says end of a life sentence happens upon being actually put into the ground or cremated, not dying on the operating table. And so these baseball players who are now back to being eligible, Rob Manfred came out and was honest, and he's gotten criticized for it, and he shouldn't be. He was honest, saying, yeah, obviously President Trump was a factor in that. I understood what the president wanted, and why wouldn't I pay attention to that? And it is driving me crazy that people are critical of that. You may disagree with the president, as I do in many things. You may agree with the president, as I do in many things. But the president is the president. The president has power, whether he deserves it, whether he doesn't, whether he basically misuses it or doesn't, whether he stands for things that make you feel so sick and bothered that you vow to do anything possible to never have someone like that as president again. Doesn't matter. The fact is that as a business, as a multi-billion-dollar business, the reality is you deal with Washington, D.C. This has nothing to do with Trump or Biden or Obama or Clinton or Kennedy. Go all the way back, Jack, since the beginning of the industrial age. You can go back further if you want. Dealing with political power is real and necessary, and people should not be critical of it. If the president of the United States calls your business and says, hey, do me a favor, could you implement another sales strategy where you are manufacturing a certain type of ladder and you're in the ladder business? You don't think you're going to take that into account? You bet your sweet bippy you are. You have to. So I do not in any way think that he was wrong for both doing it and admitting it. He is a businessman. He was asked to cover the tariffs as well. Little nugget that you're going to learn now for the day. Minor league baseballs are manufactured in China. Major league baseballs are manufactured, put together in Costa Rica. I hope you're aware of the fact that the tariffs from China may be a thing. And the thing may be that minor league baseballs may become too expensive and not worth it, in which case they will find a better, cheaper way to get a baseball made. But they will not screw with the big league baseballs. It wouldn't occur to you that they're different baseballs, but they are. Major League Baseball is done by hand by people in Costa Rica. MLB is basically runs the business, having acquired it, but it is a whole system. There's great pictures and things that explain how baseballs are made. And can you imagine in this world where CEOs are talking to media or talking to analysts, where the conversation is, what impact would tariffs have on your business? All of the young people listening may say that seems totally out of the ordinary, out of the question. I can't believe it's happening. Do you know that people in the C-suite for decades have talked about tariffs, talked about expenses, overseas expenses, talked about all of the things that happen in Washington that impact their business? This is totally normal for Rob to have done it. I'm glad he addressed it. All right, let's take a break, Coke. After the break, we've got our Thursday movie to review, which I cannot wait to review. And then I want to have a little talk about the salary cap in baseball, because that's going to be another large topic of discussion. And Rob Manfred covered it when he met the media yesterday. Let's take a break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. We are in hour one of a 2-hour show. Stay tuned for next hour. We have a guest. It's Thursday. You know we have guests on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Pablo Torre is going to be here on a absolute media tour of all of his accomplishments with Pablo Torre Finds Out and Meadowlark. Can't wait to see him in about 30 minutes. But for now, I want to get to the review. The review, we're still new at this. I thought, Coca, there was going to be a whoosh, like that animation that shows the review. I thought we'd do that. I thought you told me that I don't call it the movie review. Don't call it, because I review TV shows as well, or Broadway plays, etc., that we renamed it the review. And we had this whole thing done by Patrick that you press button 69 on your console, and then it goes whoosh. And then I say, that's it. We are a lean, mean fighting machine. We have no kinks in the process. We put the P in perfect. Go to davidsamsonpodcast.com, please. There's new merch there. Check it out. By the way, Coke, after the show, I don't know how I forgot this. You have to remind us to call and get the 15% tag done on davidsamsonpodcast.com, please. Don't forget to remind me right when we're done with today's show. 2, on that website, there's a link to our top 100 movies, my top 100 movies. Every Thursday, we review one of them, and today we're reviewing number 57, 500 Days of Summer. You will remember where you were the first time you watched 500 Days of Summer. You will remember looking at Joseph Gordon-Levitt and thinking about Zooey Deschanel and trying to understand their relationship, trying to appreciate what it is for a boy to love a girl, for a boy to have a feeling about a girl, for a relationship to start when you think that you are in over your skis, full Eddie the Eagle, but somehow you get the feeling that you're deserving of the love that you're receiving, even though normally we only get the love that we deserve and that we feel we deserve. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt got more than he thought he deserved, thinking that it was his moment. And then 500 days passes. When I first saw 500 Days of Summer, spoiler alert, I thought that what a weird thing to have a season that lasts longer than a year. I thought summer would last 1/4 of 1 year. But what an interesting thing, except for the fact you then come to know 500 Days of Summer is 500 days dating a girl named Summer. Spoiler alert, you're still going to love it if you haven't seen it, because the way it unravels and then the way it ends. The final title card, the final moment that appears before the credits on 500 Days of Summer is one of the most memorable things you will see at the end of a movie that will give you all the feels that I search for every single day. 500 Days of Summer, check it out. We have a random number generator. Coca presses a button, though now he has so many buttons, I don't know if he'll remember which button it is, and that will tell us what movie we're going to review next Thursday. Hit it. Hit it. Hit it. Coca's got a button that he presses that's a random number generator that tells us what movie we're going to review the following Thursday. Hit it. Hit it. Groundhog Day. Does anyone get what just happened? Is it just me? Is it way better not to have to explain the joke, that it just happens? The minute I saw Groundhog Day in my ear, I decided to do the same ask twice, like Groundhog Day. Forget it. If you're interested in what I'm reviewing tomorrow, that's a new thing we're doing this week with the 2-hour show. We give it to you. And I sort of now have to plan in advance the movie I'm going to watch each day, which is not my favorite thing because it takes away the impulse that I get when I'm going from streamer to streamer and saying, oh, I'll watch that today. But it pressures me to have to watch something, not something, but this. Mountainhead. That's the new movie by Jesse Armstrong on Max, or I think we have to call it HBO Max now, with Steve Carell. I'm going to watch that. We'll review it tomorrow. Coca. I don't know where we are. Salary. I have a bead of sweat that's coming down my brow right now because I completely lost track of where we were in the show. I'm going to regather myself. 4869. Rob Manfred, when he met the media, as we talked about before the break, had a lot of subjects to cover. Another subject that he covered in great detail was the salary cap issue in baseball. I would have argued with Rob had he gone over what his list of talking points were, because there have been so many people talking about this very issue. The issue is owners who feel you need a salary cap, owners who feel you don't. The issue is owners who feel there is no more economic disparity in this league. They can't even see economic parity from here. The level of economic disparity has gone to an all-time high, creating major owner v. owner issues, all of which we have discussed in great detail on Nothing Personal. The union is very well aware that there is no, right now, clear path for what the owners are going to propose to the players when it comes time to negotiate with them next year. The players know the owners have not come to a final decision on the strategy of what they're going for in the next CBA. You do not start negotiating a CBA, if you're smart, until you know exactly what you want on every issue. You go to the table the first time with a clear plan. You have a path to get to each individual success. You have a path to get to a global success in your agreement. And you have a path to know what you'll compromise, what the order of operations is to what you have to have versus what you want to have versus what you need to have versus what it would be great to have but not necessary. You keep track of all that. It is hard for me to believe that baseball will put the salary cap in anything other than like to have, don't need to have. It is very likely that what baseball is doing, smartly so, is recognizing that owners are arguing over this, and one of the ways to deal with it is to come to a consensus that's not really a consensus. What I mean by that is you go to the table with an idea of wanting a salary cap, knowing very well you're not going to get it, but you get to tell the owners who are hardline salary cap owners, man, we tried. We were all in. We were ready to go lockout strike for 2 years to get you what you wanted, Jerry, but we're not getting it. We are simply not going to get it. Then the commissioner's office gets to have plausible deniability for any level of either incompetence or competence at the negotiating table, and this group is quite competent. But the deniability is, hey, this ain't me. We went in all in on your issue, and it didn't work. That happens every round of collective bargaining. Not every owner gets everything. So what Rob decided to do was just acknowledge, hey, payroll disparity is such a fact of life among the ownership group that there's not a lot of need for talking about whether we have it or not. Everybody gets it. We understand that it's become a bigger problem, Rob continued, but there has not been a lot of conversation about that particular topic. I want you to focus on the last sentence of what he said. It is the most meaningful sentence of what he said. He wants the union to believe, and you, the fan and media, that there has not been a lot of conversation about that particular topic. He knows that's not true. It is one of the great things that is being talked about amongst owners, both publicly and privately, both in meetings or in little sidebars. The economic and payroll disparity and whether or not a salary cap can help curb that, and how you deal with the salary floor, how you get the low people higher, the high people lower. Of course, there's been a lot of conversation about it. It would be perfectly normal for Rob to admit it, but amazing strategy not to. Because then you get to go to the table with the players and say, yeah, you think you're going to divide us because we have division about payroll disparity? We have unanimity. Everyone knows it exists. You think you're going to divide us? These are the players and the owners. The owners telling the players, you think you're going to divide us over salary cap? It's not going to work. Players do this too, by the way, because we try to divide the players. We try to divide pitchers and hitters. We try to do things that aid pitchers but hurt hitters. And then later on, we'll do something that hurts pitchers and helps hitters. We're always trying to divide membership in the union because when there is division, there is lack of clarity of purpose. There's lack of ability to win a negotiation. It's why to win a negotiation, you got to be laser focused. You have to be lockstep with your partner, and you can never show weakness to the other side, ever. Make no mistake. Rob Manfred yesterday, after the owners' meeting, talking to the media, I count that as day one of the new CBA negotiation. We're about 13 hours away. That's it. 13 hours away from the start of the NBA Finals. Yeah. Who's excited? What would you say are the top 5 storylines of this year's NBA Finals? I think we'd all agree the number one storyline is the market size. All right, we covered it. I'm over it. Yes, Oklahoma City, small market. Yes, Indiana, small market. Yes, not Lakers, not Knicks. Fine. SGA League MVP. Watch him and the team. You want to be jealous? You want to be jealous? Go watch Oklahoma City with the youngest team in the NBA and the best team in the NBA. Be jealous. You want to be jealous with the number of picks in the pipeline that Oklahoma City has as they let people graduate and don't overpay them and bring in young people who are going to be just as good? You want to talk about how a dynasty starts? Yes, sir. Go look at Oklahoma City. The problem is that when you're a small market or a large market, you get very upset with teams like Oklahoma City. The way that teams don't like Tampa and the success that Tampa has, because GMs of large payroll teams get furious when their owner says, dude, why can't you win? We give you $100 million more per year, and Tampa keeps kicking your butt. In the NBA, can you not imagine Jimmy Dolan being like, explain to me how it happens that we can be so much worse than Oklahoma City? Now, Coca, you're in my ear. I hear you. You're right. The CBA monster will come for Oklahoma City, but that's why they've got all the picks upcoming. That's why they still have young players to funnel in, where you let the more expensive players get off your roster. You keep 1, 2, SGA being one of them, and then you refill in with a new core of young people. People seem to somehow mistake the Yankees as having won all those World Series back in the late 90s with the same exact team. They had a core that was together, but they moved players on the margins every single year. Every World Series champion has a different team the next season. It's totally normal. It wasn't just the Marlins, and Oklahoma City will be that as well. So you're going to read a lot about market size. I downplay it. You're going to read a lot about Paul George. That one makes me laugh. Paul George is the through line to both of these teams because both of them got this good because they got rid of Paul George, which makes me laugh. You hate to be the last guy holding the bag. You just hate it. You're going to read a lot about SGA Halliburton as a matchup. I think it'll end up being Neesmith who covers SGA. He's the one who is their absolute superb defender with the ankle injury, but he'll be fine. You're going to read a lot about Hartenstein and Turner. Turner becoming a free agent. Hartenstein having signed an out-of-this-world deal to leave the Knicks for Oklahoma City Thunder, and whether Turner will make what Hartenstein made. You'll read all of these sort of storylines. But the best thing about this series that finally gets going tonight is that we're going to find out once and for all how bad the Knicks are. And that's what interests me, is the Knicks losing and just losing badly to the Pacers, knowing that the Pacers were so much better. If it turns out to be that Oklahoma City is so much better than the Pacers, like as better than the Pacers as the Pacers were to the Knicks, that means the Knicks end up twice as worse off, twice as behind a title aspiration, twice behind being the best. It is incredibly humbling and totally normal for teams to pay attention to who eliminates them in the playoffs and rooting for those teams to win the title so you can say, hey, man, we were this close. We took that team to 7 games. Think about like what the Maple Leafs could say if the Panthers win the cup. We almost had them. We had them in the palms of our hand. We can do this. We can win a cup for the first time in 3 score. So that, to me, is going to be an important, big part of the NBA Finals. There's something else that'll be talked about in sports media. It shouldn't be as big a deal as it is, but boy, do we focus on announcers. I watched most of my baseball games on mute during the years. only because visiting broadcasters, sometimes I'd want to hear what they had to say, sometimes not. This is the first NBA Finals for the ESPN crew of Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and Richard Jefferson. You remember that crew has undergone tremendous change. J.J. Redick was on that crew. Doc Rivers was on that crew. It started with Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy. So firings and people going to become coaches. And now they've got Richard Jefferson, who's a name you may know. He's got one ring. He's been in the league. I guess he had a 17-year career. Good career. Doris Burke is a Hall of Fame basketball analyst. Just unbelievable wealth, depth of knowledge. Their threesome is less than compelling. It's like they don't quite fit, and you need reps to fit, and they just haven't had enough reps. But rumors are already coming out, and Andrew Marchand discussed this if you listen to his sports media pod, that this could be one and done for them as broadcasters of the finals. And I remember reading that yesterday, because that seems like a long time ago for me. And I was thinking to myself, that really didn't used to be a thing. You know, you liked Madden Summerall. You loved Michaels and Deerdorf. You miss Howard Cosell, Frank Gifford. But on the other hand, broadcast booths change. They come, they go. There is something great about continuity and stability in that studios like that. You sign people, Buck and Aikman, you keep them together. People forget that Joe Buck had plenty of other partners. All of that is to say, if you read more and more about the booth and its criticisms of the booth, I would just ignore it. Focus on the basketball. The way I focus on nothing personal pick of the day. Nope. No whoosh. We're going to have to go through this, Coco, because I thought we had something for that too. I thought there was like a button that gets pressed, and it's this great animation. All right, we'll get there. Don't panic, audience. We will get in lockstep. Last night, what a great pick, Royals-Cardinals. We had the Royals as underdogs over the Cardinals. That was a slam dunk. For whatever reason, they didn't play the game, so we can't take the win. But that was going to be a win, but Coca said, I can't take it. So Royals and Cardinals were rained out. Then we had Florida plus 110 in a mush bet, which I should have done the Oilers because that would be the mush, unless I'm rooting for the Oilers, which I'm not, in which case Florida was the mush bet, in which case I'm happy that the Oilers are up 1-0. But the reality is I wanted to win the pick of the day, and I want the series to go 7, so each team has to lose 3 times at one point or another. Florida plus 110 was a loss. We are 2 games under. Let's talk about the Pacers-Thunder game. It's a 9.5-point spread, and the view is that the Thunder will have a margin of victory of 10+ because that's pretty much what they do in record-setting fashion. They blew out more teams this year than any team in the history of the NBA, including those with Jordan. They have more blowouts than any of them. So a blowout of the Pacers in game 1 makes perfect sense. The Thunder are rested, so are the Pacers. The Thunder are ready to win 4 more games to bring the crown to OKC. Indiana would like to win a title too. Indiana, when I watched what they did to the Knicks in game 1, I was there. The Knicks had it, and then all of a sudden, Nesmith hits 6 threes, and Halliburton hits a skyrocket in flight, and my afternoon was absent any delight. I'm going to take the points here, Coca. I'm taking Pacers plus 9.5 versus Thunder. There is an interesting baseball game. I am still paying close attention to Framber Valdez and the Astros. People may not realize how good Mitch Keller of the Pirates is, but we told you yesterday he's just had bad luck. He's pitched well, but the Pirates can't win a game with Skeens pitching or Keller pitching. Well, it's time to change that when you get plus 136. Keller and the Pirates plus 136 over Valdez and the Astros. That is rich, and we'll take it. So the 2 picks, Pacers plus 9.5 versus Thunder, Keller and the Pirates plus 136 over Valdez and the Astros. Those are your nothing personal picks of the day for Thursday, June 5th. Coming out of this break, when we come back, we're going to have plenty other things to discuss with you, and we're going to have Pablo Torre. So make sure you're back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. I'm David Samson, and this is hour two of today's show, June 5th, 2025. I want to lead off with the NBA. You know, the finals, we just talked about it. The finals are tonight. We're about 12 and a half hours, unless you're watching this on DraftKings Network, in which case it's about 9 o'clock right now. So we're under 12 hours from tip-off of this much anticipated small market finals. We talked about Rob Manfred meeting the media at owners' meetings. We know commissioners also meet the media during their Jewel event. Super Bowl, All-Star Game, NBA Finals, World Series. Well, it is the NBA Finals, therefore Adam Silver is going to talk. And guess what happened? You knew I wasn't going to let this go. When we get a wait to see right, we focus on that. When we get them wrong, we focus on it too, because we have accountability, unlike the other people in media, most of them. Way back on February 24th of this year, we told you that next year's All-Star Game is going to be USA versus the world. It just made too much sense. What we learned yesterday is that wait to see from 22425 was correct, because Adam Silver took the opportunity to tell people on FS1 yesterday, hey, we got to change that format again, and I'm here to tell you it's going to be USA versus the world. What better opportunity? It's as though he listened to Nothing Personal. The opportunity is that the All-Star Game under the new TV deals, which begin next year, which is why Adam Silver is not despondent beyond repair that this could be a low-rated finals, that few people are watching the first few games, because he knows very well what's in front of him. And what's in front of him is money. What's in front of him is NBC taking the All-Star Game every single year. What's in front of him is NBC saying, you know what? We can do better than Warner Brothers Discovery and TNT. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to move the game to the afternoon from the nighttime. That sounds like a winner to me. Number two, we're going to have it related to. There's going to be a through line with our programming and what we do on our channel. And it just so happens that during that time period, we've got the Winter Olympics going on. Therefore, wouldn't it be amazing if we did some sort of theme in the All-Star Game that would remind people of the Olympics and of patriotism and of national pride? The NBA has, God, what's the number, Coca? The last 6 or 7 MVPs are all international players. So it makes perfect sense that Adam Silver would announce this, as he should have, and as he did. So when you see the All-Star Game on NBC next year and you watch, they're not going to draft players the way they did. It's where you're born, and you can choose whether you're world or U.S. No, it's not like the World Baseball Classic, where if you've had, Penne Arbiata, you get to play for Team Italy, or if you've had a schmear, you get to play on Team Israel. It's not like that. It's actually, are you an international player or are you not? NBC has a lot of power in this new TV deal, as does Amazon, as does Disney, because when you're paying that amount of money, you have a partnership. And the NBA, they are good partners. So messing around with the format for the All-Star Game, it all makes perfect sense. And you're going to see it now for the next 11 years, that type of change. Coca, do we have our guest ready to go? I don't know whether we do. I was really hoping we did, because all right. It's Thursday. The new Nothing Personal means that we will have a guest every Tuesday, every Thursday. I was going to make it a surprise that we had Pablo Torre, but he's too big now to be a surprise, and he fit us into his schedule. Pablo, welcome to Nothing Personal. We are getting him on the show currently. Remember, this is a brand new situation with a light staff, Pablo. We don't have the ability when we're live.
I was okay. You already are insulting me. I was congratulating you, trying to break through the tech support issues to say congratulations, David Samson, on getting twice as much real estate. It's well deserved, and also apologize for making fun of my staff.
Well, I love your staff. As a matter of fact, I have given such great props to Patrick, who redesigned everything we do. So we have a new look here. I
It
know
looks
you
great.
you
Looks great.
focus. Well, you've watched the intro, I know, because you watch every day. I actually do like watching Pablo Torre Finds Out. I must admit that I watch the shows that I'm in of yours to see how you edit it, and I watch the ones otherwise that interest me that are topical. And so it seems to me that the way you've done Pablo Torre Finds Out, all the awards it's won. So congrats. You were just in LA for the Peabody dinner. Tell me about that. Are you like in the room where it happens? Did you wear a tux?
I did not wear a tux. I did wear a suit. It's cocktail attire. What does cocktail attire mean to you?
Note it means no suit and tie optional.
So I went suit with a black polo shirt
That's cocktail
because
attire.
I abide by the rules. But there were people wearing tuxedos. Lauren Michaels was there with like the cast of SNL. They were being honored. Various dignitaries and like very serious people were there. It was look, the people I shouldn't bury the lead here, right? So I was in LA. I went to the Peabody Awards. It was a real honor. I also was beefing with Bill Simmons, and so most of that night at the awards show, I was also like refreshing my phone, figuring out how do I respond to Bill, and I ended up podcasting with Bill. And now I'm gun shy because I've talked about this stupid award ceremony so much on his show and now here that I just feel like I am I'm a bit on the nose as the caricature of myself. Like, let me talk about all of these awards that I got nominated for. I didn't even win the Peabody, by the way. So thank you
It's
for
just an
asking.
honor to be nominated.
No, legitimately,
No, it's not.
it's okay. Um,
You
I was
lost.
actually gonna go with yes, it is, because it's just one of those awards where there is no lobbying. There's no every you know this, David. I mean, you did the lobbying actually for the equivalent, right? Like you have the backroom schmoozing, you have the awards budget, and you've made fun of course, the PTFO awards budget at Meadowlark Media, the line item, which is a real amount of money that we set aside every year to apply. This one, there's none of that. There's a nominal fee maybe to submit, but in terms of like, hey, can you meet this person and win over these jurors and all that? Like, they're just so flagrantly anti that in their nerdery that it's incredibly, yeah, I find it authentic to actually be recognized, if not win. And so I just like the idea of you, by the way, being the schmoozer. Now that I think about it, like, who are you schmoozing on behalf of as awards luster after?
Well, it actually shines brightly on Meadowlark. What you're doing, it makes Meadowlark and Dan Lebitard look good, and that show has a habit of really yucking on everybody's yum as content and as bit. But for me, when you have a company that you're running or that you founded, you want to stand up shows that are successful. And I get that Dan's audience wants to, be part of a joke or in on a joke or have everybody say, oh, I don't like that as a standard, because the reason why people want to be nominated and win awards, it's a reflection not just of the work you do, but the people with whom you do it. And that's why when people are giving thank yous, they're often and always thanking the people. Have you ever noticed that movie stars, when they win Oscars, this is the greatest cast and crew I've ever worked with? They speak in that hyperbole until the next time they're nominated, and that becomes the greatest cast and crew they've ever worked with. You do it for a reason, because it gives those people that moment, that feeling of camaraderie that you have with your staff, that I have with Coca. Like, me and Coca are sitting there next to each other saying, hey, I like you. Hey, I like you too. Anyone else out there? Hey, Jack, you want to join? But for you, Pablo, your group gets the benefit of all of the aura that you provide with these awards, and I think it's smart.
Look, man, in a sincere way, I try to transcend external validation, and already you can laugh at me for even pretending that I could ever achieve it. But I aspire to transcend it, but know in the economics of what we do, it is a game. John Green, who is the guy who wrote The Fault in Our Stars and is a great philanthropist and YouTuber. He was on my show as a guest, and he put it the way that I think is best. Doing anything, making anything online, especially now, is kind of like playing Marco Polo to to your analogy there, you yell Marco and you want someone out there to yell Polo. And then you just do a call and response for as long as you can, such that you build a relationship. And sometimes you don't hear Polo because everything is scattered and fragmented and siloed and no one is aware of anything else because we're all trapped in our own personalized algorithms and so forth and so on our phones. So to have someone say Polo back, whether it's a listener, a viewer, or an awards jury or whatever, is necessary economically, but also psychologically, because let's face it, all of us need to know that we're talking to someone out there.
What do you do when you yell Marco and you don't hear Polo? In the actual game, you know what happens next?
What?
You switch where you are and then you yell Marco again. Because what you know is it's not user error, it's you're not near the Polo. Therefore, you have to get near to the Polo and you don't apologize for it. Switch positions, you yell Marco again and wait for the Polo. To me, it is the perfect analogy, and I never apologize for, we've talked about this both on Le Batard and on your show, apology for ego, apology for wanting attention and needing attention. Who exactly apologizes for that? That's like a writer apologizing because he or she or they want people to read the book that they publish. Why else do you publish a book except for people to read it? I do this show because I love it, but I love it more when people either hate watch or love watch. It doesn't even matter to me. That I will wear and own to the day they take the microphone away.
Yeah, I imagine that off screen, as you sit in a giant baseball glove, is the outstretched arm of your audience catching you. You would
Every
like your
time.
audience to receive you in the giant glove they are holding, because you're right. Why else? I mean, I do want to shed the pretense of, yeah, like I do enjoy when people listen to me because I really try to be worth listening to. It's anyway. I want to know something about you, David. Do you remember the biggest sort of like stunt awards budget related thing you pulled with the Marlins? Did you do anything creative to like lobby? Did you have a campaign in which you did some like, you sent every baseball writer a personalized something or other?
We paid people to fill out paper ballots.
You just went boss Tweed.
Do you remember back in the day for All-Stars, it was ballots. It wasn't online.
Oh, yeah.
You
right.
literally had ballots where the way teams would get All-Stars and starting All-Star players is whoever got voted on the most by the fans. And every ballpark would get sent paper ballots, and the most attended teams would have the advantage. And we didn't have a high attendance in Florida, obviously. And I always wanted starting All-Stars because I wanted the attention. I wanted positive attention for our franchise because it made us feel better about ourselves. So what we did is we would bring in pallets of All-Star ballots and we would bring people to games for free, then pay them, feed them, and all day long they would be filling out the paper ballots with just the Marlins players.
You created a sweatshop of voters.
We did.
By the way,
That's a true story.
Oh, I believe it and I know it to be true. And I just want to point out that I don't think the word pallet is used in a way that is not suspicious.
No, that's not true.
I brought home a pallet of groceries today. Yeah. Sure.
Have you ever heard of Costco? Pallets are a big thing. I'm a bulk buyer.
Is pallet, well, of course, but is pallet the unit of measurement at Costco? I'm not a Costco member. I'm from New York City. I'm not familiar with.
I'm not either, but I know that things are in pallets when you go to some stores like bottles of water and pallets. Or
yeah, but hold on. Yes, I think technically they are grouped and purchased in bulk, and technically that means pallet. But I'm telling you, pallet as a term is like, it's like the Sinaloa cartel and Tony Soprano and you. Like that's their unit of measurement.
I will wear that, but I acknowledge one of the things that happened on our show with Dominique that just came out yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
I got a lot of calls about that show, and I want to mention it to you.
Please.
People think that when me, you, and Dominique get together, that we had, and this was not just one person, multiple people in my life and people I don't know, that it's all scripted and that you're aware of a story I'm going to tell and I'm aware of a story you're going to tell and we have our reactions ready to go. And I couldn't tell whether I was honored by that assessment or insulted by it because it can go either way.
Yeah, that's funny. So the truth of it, what those people can find out by listening to this show we're doing right now, is that I think that was the least prepared, structured, scripted show I've ever done on PTFO. We sat down, we did not know what we were going to talk about. I deliberately asked you for a list of topics. We did none of them. Dominique,
True.
Dominique, I told nothing.
You didn't ask him
About
for a list of topics?
No,
Just me?
I know better than that.
Yeah, it's true.
You got to coach the players you have. Like, come on, you're not the same guy. He's not going to give me a list of topics. And I love you for doing it, and I love you even more for not caring, or at least not telling me that you care, that I asked none of them. So that's the pre-show, but the show is us sitting down, and when I tell you that, like, we made, I think maybe if we made an edit, it was because of some tech thing. We rearranged nothing. We edited almost nothing. Pretty much like it's just the least edited episode in the history of my show, which prides itself on, again, like cleaning up and nipping and tucking because we're trying to structure and tell stories. So it's just the opposite, actually, which I'm proud of. And that was that much I of course, I'm also deeply proud of that. My show can also be the place where you, me, and Dominique, as we did on Dan's show last summer in this magical summer week that we did together, in which we just riffed live for 4 hours a day. I also pride myself on the fact that there are combinations that enable that too, on either side of the production spectrum.
How do you figure out how often you can subject your audience to things that are less edited and less sort of PTFO snooty? And I say that in a very positive way. As you're thinking about your cadence, how do you decide when your pipeline and what you're willing to do when?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I've realized is that the audience, to your question, does not know the difference if we do it right. So for me, like, I've been gratified that no one has pointed out, like, wow, that felt like a different episode of PTFO. It sounded like you guys just sat down and riffed. No one has said that to me. In fact, according to you, you've gotten feedback that suggests the opposite, that this was deeply structured, which is so funny to me. And so part of and again, behind the curtain of this, like, I worry about how to make these shows in a way that is obsessive. And then perpetually, I'm reminded that the audience doesn't know. And that is because I think we care about the end product being the end product as a function of quality. But the how, yeah, like part of what I want to do more of is, and this is because I enjoy it, because it's easier, because I think there are upsides that aren't available when you are so structured. I just want to do more going forward of the stuff that you, me, and Dominique did. In fact, I'll use this opportunity to book you. Let's do that again this month. Let's get Dominique back. Let's have you not drive 2.5 hours just to do it. But let's I want to do that, regularly, because it was that good.
What I enjoy about that, it's the same thing that I enjoy about Nothing Personal. So this is only 3 days into the new 2-hour format, and you're the second guest we've ever had. We've done sit-downs before, you've done them, and that's been a 50-minute conversation. This is now part of a 2-hour show, and what I'm learning is how the mechanics work when you're solo talking into the abyss, and then you interrupt it with being with someone, and then all of a sudden you're back to solo for the last few segments before the end of the show. And I think about how I feel doing Nothing Personal, how I feel doing PTFO versus how I feel doing Dan's show. And what interests me is that my feeling when I'm sitting with you is the great feeling that I am completely protected. And that is something that I don't often admit, because people would think I don't need to feel that way and think I have no feelings. When I'm on with Dan, I'm open, I'm naked and afraid, because I don't trust or understand exactly what they're going to do, but I'm open to it and I play the character. When I'm on PTFO, which we've done so many episodes together, Sporting Class with Dominique, etc., I just feel differently. And I think that's what makes your show so interesting to so many people, is that I feel, which means the audience through me would feel that way. Oh, this ride is going to be safe, but super fun. And Pablo, I'll just tell you, the equivalent is when you go to a state fair and there's a roller coaster and you're saying to yourself, there's a chance that I'm going to die on this. But when you go to Six Flags and go to the big roller coaster, you say, this is going to be insane, but I feel safe. Yeah. You are Six Flags.
Yeah, Dan Le Batard is the wooden roller coaster. It's like, I got some splinters. I think I almost legitimately died. I may regret having done this. But I did live, to Dan's credit. We are both alive. Look, I find it funny, right? I'm trying to explain my show to people, Bill Simmons included, and there is this mixture of, and I fly this freak flag proudly. We do, in fact, pursue adversarial journalism in which people are made uncomfortable by the reporting that we do, and we do not apologize for that. And we are an investigative sports journalism podcast. And at the same time, the people in my life that I've gotten to know, that I have relationships with, the magic secret threading of the needle is they trust me, and that means they say things that they may, their friends may think that the story you told about actually pandering to a black church in South Florida to raise public money by you buying a Steve Harvey suit and saying, "Can I get an amen?" They may think that must have been something that you like had blackmail on David and forced him to tell you. And all I can say is that the magic of David Samson and the magic of any relationship in which there is trust is that you realize that if I'm going to say this on the show, it's not going to blow up in my face and ruin a friendship. Like, that's the vibe of what I want to create for the people that I personally have relationships with. And so we are multitudes in that way.
It is the vibe that you do create. And I think we just ought to keep going. And I don't know how your career will unravel, nor mine, but I just expect that it will continue to unravel together, because the beauty of what we do is that to satiate our own egos, to get the attention that we need while doing things that people actually enjoy paying attention to and listening to me, we have found it. We might as well just keep going.
Continuing to unravel together feels like exactly the right legal language on what we're signing up for. Yeah.
Pablo, I appreciate it. We'll do this again, and I'll come back on PTFO. It's worth the 2.5 hours.
Let's get Dominique. You can send me some topics, and he will send me none.
Always. See you later, Pablo. I really do love him. Not in like a way that's uncomfortable, just in a way that makes me realize that finding someone like Pablo Torre, and we all have our faults, all of us, and we have very deep discussions. We don't agree every time. We work together a lot. But what we have is this dance that we do. And when you find someone you can dance with, and you can find someone who it's okay to dance in front of, you have found someone to love who may, in fact, love you back. Maybe. I'm glad Pablo joined. I want to get to the Club World Cup. I have taken a big interest in the Club World Cup. It's the FIFA Club World Cup. There was that play-in game that happened where LAFC joined. You got the Seattle Sounders and Inter Miami from MLS. You've got teams from around the world playing for what turns out to be about $1 billion in prize money. You've got tournament games taking place in the United States, and you have this feeling that this is a money grab, if there ever was one, by FIFA. And I want to be very clear, my view of money grabs. I'm all in, because in order to have a money grab, there has to be somebody's money who you're grabbing. And it has to be someone who's willing to give you their money because they perceive they're getting value in return. The value that FIFA is getting is a TV deal that's huge. They're getting the ability to add games to a very crowded season for these players. They're getting the ability to do something in between World Cups and just calling it the Club World Cup, where the World Cup is what butters their bread, but this is what puts salt on it. The attention has been nothing but fantastic until we covered yesterday. Yesterday? Maybe it was today. Can't remember. Players getting upset. We're not being paid enough. Our schedules stink. Adding all these games. MLS players getting despondent that the most they can make is like an extra 30 grand, while their brethren overseas can make like $1 million extra dollars. So that was a bit of negative press that was attached to the Club World Cup, but then it got ratcheted up yesterday when word got out that FIFA has, quote, slashed ticket prices for Club World Cup matches, including the opening match in Miami with Messi. It used to be that you bring Messi to a game and it's so sold out, you don't even know what to do. You can't charge enough. Hard Rock Stadium, no problem. It's Beyonce, for crying out loud. It's Taylor Swift. It's secondary market of your dreams. Can you imagine that Lionel Messi playing for Inter Miami is not a sold-out game in a Club World Cup? Let's talk about supply and demand. What makes it super exciting to have the F1 Grand Prix at Hard Rock Stadium? Lack of supply. It's once a year, baby, at most. What would happen in your mind if the F1 Grand Prix was a race that was held 81 times a year in Miami? I'm just throwing it out there. What do you think would happen? I happen to have worked with a sport that had 81 home games. I happened to work in a sport where there was so much supply that it made demand hard to come by. This is a sore spot for me, but you get criticized for drawing 15,000 people to a Tuesday night game in the summer for baseball, but an NBA game has a total capacity of 19,000 and they're half as many. The Marlins could be the worst team in attendance in South Florida. They're still outdrawing the Dolphins and the Heat. Why? Twice as many games, 10 times as many games. Doesn't matter to me. Would you rather have one $100 bill or 100 $1 bills? Just curious. It's the same thing. I could argue 100 $1 bills is easier to take care of and is accepted in more establishments, some of which some of us like to frequent. Lionel Messi, when he came over, there was this wow factor. And the wow factor is what leads to price elasticity. Now that factor's gone. He's played in Fort Lauderdale in the Drive Pink Stadium. What's it called now, Coca? They may have changed it to a bank name because they're doing a stadium in Miami. Where does Inter Miami play? Is it still Drive Pink in Fort Lauderdale? Can't remember. I can't hear you anyway, Coca. But the fact they changed it to Chase. Have I ever told you the story of how stadiums get the names of banks? Like Citi Field, as in Citibank, like Chase Field, which used to be in where the Arizona Diamondbacks played. Do you know how badly I wanted Marlins Park to be called Chase Park? Although it would have been fine being Bank of America. Ever heard of a ballpark named after Bank of America? Do you know that's because that banks have multiple points of interest and contact with the team? And forget just sponsorship marketing, which these banks have those dollars to spend. There's also major business to be done with the owners of teams. There's major business to be done with financing of stadiums because you're borrowing money. There is major business to be done in construction of a stadium. And then wouldn't you know it, all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, it's Chase Field. I love that. That was just a side note, Coca. Just a little side clip. Let's get back to the slashing of ticket prices because people in Miami, they're good. They can see Messi whenever they want. What about tourists? Here's where it gets interesting. One of the big concerns, side topic, that Los Angeles is having about the 2028 Olympics is the concern of whether or not anyone is actually going to travel and come to the U.S., given what's going on with ICE, given what's going on with the borders. If I come to the U.S., will I be able to leave? How hard is it going to be? How are the delays going to be? What kind of time do I have to allocate? There was a time when there was a thought that this year's Hall of Fame induction with Ichiro, there would be 100,000 people coming in from Japan. With the state of the world economy, with the state of being in the United States, the question is how many Japanese people will actually come to the Hall of Fame induction? That's a serious question. It's going to be a big number. Record-breaking? Probably not. Not because Ichiro isn't worthy. God knows he is. Because of the reality of where we are. LA 28, that is happening for real. People concerned about how it's going to work. Club World Cup in the U.S. We just got a list yesterday of 10 or 12 more countries where people aren't allowed to come in, period. There is a lot of concern. So what do you do? What do you do when you look as though you've got too many tickets available to an event that you want there to be scarcity of demand? Two choices. One, you buy the tickets yourself. You put them on the secondary market through different accounts, different names. There's whole systems you can use which make it look like that, yes, the tickets are gone. The risk is that the secondary market will be soft and the prices will go down and you lose money by buying tickets at 100 and selling them at 50. Yes, it looked good. They all got bought at 100. Then it looks bad that they're all available for 50 because God knows everybody on the Intergoogle is paying attention these days. Oh, the walk-in price to the NBA Finals is $969. For the French Open, it's 249 francs. Although it's euros now. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to lower your ticket prices. Lower the point of entry. What are the risks there? The risks are that when you put together a package that is not tied to revenue directly, there's a guarantee paid to your talent, a guarantee paid to your halftime performers, paid to your players, whatever the case may be. And part of your financial system is that you've counted on revenue to pay for the expenses that are what's called fixed expenses. And if your revenue assumptions go to hell in a handbasket, you are totally screwed because you still have the fixed expenses, but your revenue has lowered and now you could lose money. You could go bankrupt. So the risk of slashing ticket prices is you can only sell that particular ticket one time. And if you were going to sell it for $100 and you lower the price to 50 and sell it at 50, if demand somehow soars later, closer to the match, you cannot recapture that $50 that you lost. Simple, plain economics. The decision by FIFA to slash those ticket prices is nothing short of panic. The thing about the panic is that it can be really alarming when you see a group panic where they're used to living in a world where they get whatever they want, where they print money as though they've got some sort of way to get Gutenberg Bibles out there on a daily basis. This change of philosophy is one that will have a deleterious impact on their numbers, on their popularity, and it won't impact their TV revenue now. But you can bet your bippers that when it comes time for the next round of Club World Cup, whether it's in 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, whatever they choose to do, you will have a hard time getting the same level of revenue, the same level of commitment because of what's happening right now with this U.S. version. It's creating issues with players. It's creating issues with sponsors. It's creating issues with fans. And when you've lost that holy trinity of those that buttress your ideas and pay for your moments, something's got to change, and it will. Chicago. God, do I love Chicago. I'd like to take one quick minute right now, and I would like to call on all the people listening to Chicago. And I know you're listening. Greg, you know I call you out. I love that you listen. Everybody, I'm going to count down now. 8, 6, 7, 5309. The Chicago Fire are now better organized than the Chicago White Sox or Chicago Bears. That is a sentence that it did not occur to me that I would ever say. The Chicago White Sox, under the stewardship of Jerry Reinsdorf, have been looking for a new ballpark. There have been threats. There have been reports. Would they move to Nashville? Would they not? Would the team be sold? Would it not? The Chicago Bears, under the great stewardship of President Kevin Warren, have made more left and right turns than people do in a roundabout. Arlington, we're in. We're out. Downtown Chicago, we're in. We're out. They're back. We've got all the property in Arlington. We've got great deal in Arlington. We've got property tax understanding. It's all coming together very well. It's amazing how it works when you're trying to get a ballpark and you don't know where you're going to get it. You go through all the different iterations of saying, I love this site, I love that site. My view is, always was, Willie Sutton, baby. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Why do you have a ballpark there? Because that's where the money is. What the Chicago Fire decided to do, it's called the Chicago Fire Football Club. They announced that they will be building a world-class soccer-specific stadium right in the heart of the city. Right as the other big clubs were trying to get deals done. Right in the location where the White Sox were thinking they had a shot. Down in that Chicago neighborhood, you know what I'm talking about. It's known as the 78, El Lupo. That 78th neighborhood is going to have an acre tenant, all right, and it's not going to be Reinsdorf. It's going to be a soccer team. What's amazing about that in Chicago is they managed to get the right PR announcement. Except they're doing the same thing that the White Sox and Bears are doing. They just announced it differently. The owner made it clear. Private. We're doing this privately. We're going to do it right in the city, and we're doing it for those fans. You better believe it that what we're doing, this is for the city. We're going to create jobs. We're going to anchor this new neighborhood that's going to make a difference to all of your constituents. You're going to get renewed, voted back in as the incumbent. All you have to do is allow me to build a private stadium, the owner said. But I got a small little thing if you wouldn't mind. How about a little of that infrastructure? It's so good. It's so good. The president of the Bears and the White Sox, they've been pretty upfront with you, saying, yeah, we're looking for public money. We're looking for money from the state. And the governor, J.B. Pritzker, has been like, I don't think so. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Pritzker spending money to negotiate with the Bears, obviously is not ignoring the White Sox, trying to figure out how to allocate public funds to the sports teams that all need something. There is a lesson to be learned here. Being first can be best. Being first is when you know that you've got competition who's going after the same, whether it's consumer, whether it's the same level of public funds, whether it's TV money in the market. I will never forget a business lesson I learned from my good friend Jeff Krolik, who used to run the Fox regional networks out in LA, worked for Fox. I was negotiating a new TV deal for the Marlins. And he said to me, by the way, we have to renegotiate with the Rays. And I'm telling you, this is your deal. You can take it, you can leave it. But here's the thing. If you leave it and we have to end up giving more money to the Rays than we expected, that's going to come directly from your pot of money. So what you are being offered now may not be what you're offered tomorrow. It's a great negotiating plea. It's the old deadline deal. We will offer you 3 years, $9 million a year, but if you don't accept by 2 days in the next 48 hours, we're taking that offer off the table and we're going to go spend that money on another free agent. The only way that works is if you actually are willing to do that which you're threatening to do. When you say you're going to relocate, you better be willing to relocate or at least convince people you are. If you are out there competing with the White Sox and with the Bears for money, and you want to get your piece and make it so there is money for you, and if you go third, you know there's not, what do? You go first. It's not about team performance. People make that mistake. The White Sox stink. They can't ask for money right now. Not one public figure, not one member of a commission ever said, oh, the Marlins had a good record, bad record. You won a World Series, lost a World Series. The White Sox have terrible results. We're not giving them money. The Chicago Fire are not exactly fire as a team. If you follow MLS, you know that they barely ever play in the postseason, like twice since 2010. You know it's been 7 years since they made it at all. And you know they're not going to make it this year. They're already in 11th place, I think, out of 15. You know the White Sox only in the last 20 years have made the playoffs 3 times, won the World Series in 2005. Guess what? It doesn't matter except to people in the media. It is the most bizarre thing. When you're negotiating, you want to get a deal done. The public wants to get a deal done. The reason why team record doesn't come up is during the course of a 40-year life of a ballpark, there's going to be good years and bad years. Your job is to plan for all of it. I give a lot of credit to the Chicago Fire for acting quickly and for letting you know that it's private money when, of course, it's not. Good on them. The pressure of performing as a home player, it's big. When you're an Olympic team member and you're at your home city in the Olympics, that's pressure. How do you think Louise Boisson is doing at the French Open? If you don't know the name, you're going to get to know her. She is French. She's playing in the French Open, which is happening right now at Roland Garros. 2 great semifinal matches today, by the way, on the men's side, or the women's side, excuse me. Tomorrow is the semifinals for the men. Do you know the last time there was a French woman who made it to the semifinals at Roland Garros? 2011. Do you know how bizarre and rare it is for a player to make it to the semifinals who is a wild card entry into the tournament? How about this, Ms. Boisson, Madame Boisson? Jamais. Never. It's never once happened. She is the first ever wild card to reach the women's singles semifinals at Roland Garros, and she's French. It is the most incredible thing. How about this stat? She's never even played in a Grand Slam before. She's in the semis. How about this? She was ranked 361st in the world. She's in the semis of a Grand Slam. I got one for you. It's a fun one. Her career earnings up to today are $148,500. Do you know how much she makes by making it to the semis of Roland Garros of a Grand Slam? $788,200. It is unbelievable. She will quadruple her earnings in one tournament for her career. It goes to show you, you have a hot week or two, it's a life changer. It's like winning a golf tournament when you've never even made a cut. It changes you forever. Now, put on top of that, you're at home. Put on top of that, the weight of a nation on your shoulders, and you perform. You don't just become a celebrity of the moment. If she makes it to the finals and wins this tournament, now, it's going to be hard. She has to play Coco Gauff at 10:30 this morning, Eastern time. So right after you're listening to the show, or if you're on DraftKings Network, finish the show, and then you'll be a half hour into the match, which in a women's match may be a full set done. But this match against Coco Gauff becomes even more important than the one that got her into the semis. Why do I say it? Do you know the name of the French woman who made the semifinals in 2011? Just out of curiosity. Is it right off the tip of your tongue? Who would you think it was? If I said Bartoli, would that mean anything to you? Any recollection of any kind? It's sort of my thing about being nominated for an award versus winning an award. It is true when you're nominated for an Oscar and you don't win, for the rest of time, when there is a preview of a movie you're in starring Academy Award nominee John Cocktoaston. People tend to not have a difference between nominee and winner. I do. And I think deep down you do too. Is it amazing to make the semifinals? Is it show worthy? Am I thrilled that I get to discuss it? Of course. But if she loses to Coco this morning, then what? Then it's just done. Yeah, she quadrupled her career earnings. Yeah, she's got 750 grand now, which she didn't have at all the whole time. But if she beats Coco, makes it to the finals, then I get to say the same thing, because then it still won't matter. Hey, Grand Slam finalist, that's a pretty big deal. But then you got to win. The men's side is something extraordinary, Coca, and we do not talk enough about the French Open. Our friend Marty Fish is a great follow on Twitter. Some of the great matches are going on. I don't know if you're paying attention to what Sinner is doing. Sinner, the number one, the player who is suspended for steroids, the player who didn't have to miss any Grand Slams, the player who is so far better than anyone else on the tour, who is waltzing his way into the Grand Slam final here at Roland Garros, the French Open. But he's got to play Djokovic. Do you know that Djokovic is back in the semifinals? I think he's done it like 13 times at the French Open. He's made the semifinals. It's absurd to have done it, to have been as good as he's been. Remember, he's the last remnant of the Federer, Nadal, Djokovic triumvirate. And he's trying to hang in there. He already has the record for Grand Slams. He took that away from Nadal and Federer. He's trying to get more, but it's like Tiger Woods going after another major. It is harder and harder to accomplish as you get older, as you get hurt more. Djokovic doesn't do it the way Tiger did it. There are no sort of anything going on other than tennis is hard to play in your 30s. If he happens to get past Sinner, which it seems incredibly unlikely that he ever will, I would assume that he can't get past Sinner. He's then going to have to face Alcaraz. Alcaraz is in the finals, a 22-year-old. He's in the semis. Guess what is going to happen with him? He's going to get to the finals. He's the one we talked about as the guy, hey, he may want to quit, he may not. He doesn't care if he wins, doesn't care. Guess what? Go watch him play. He cares. The French Open has a bunch of really cool storylines, and I would fully expect people to be watching, as they should, starting today, 10:30, women's finals. I want to finish today with a quote. You know how much I love quotes, and I want you to think about something over the next couple minutes here. When you are a team that's picked by David Samson preseason to win the pennant, that's a whole lot of pressure. When you're a team that is owned by someone who owns Liverpool and the Pittsburgh Penguins, you're under a lot of pressure. When you're a team that has a manager, Alex Cora, who is there to win, payroll high, results bad, you've got pressure. Alex Cora, after the Red Sox had lost another game, they won last night, but on that crazy, pesky pole, walk-off 308-foot home run, that would have been a home run in exactly 0 stadiums. And who exactly cares? It was a home run in Boston, walk-up. I hate that stat, Coca. Hate it. Oh, that would only be a home run in 3 major league stadiums. Well, you were in one of them. It's a home run. I always did not enjoy when players said, David, that would have been a home run. Marlins Park, you got to move the walls in. That would have been a home run park anywhere. Well, hit it harder, hit it longer. So the Red Sox won a game. But Alex Cora is upset with his team, and I want to tell you what he said. He said, we keep making the same mistakes. We're not getting better. At one point, it has to be on me, I guess. I'm the manager. I've got to keep pushing them to be better. They're not getting better. They're not. We keep making the same mistakes. I'll be very honest about it and very open about it. The reason I want to draw that quote to your attention is that is the quote of someone who is going to get fired. When you have a manager come out and say that, when you've got Craig Breslow, the chief baseball officer, who came out and said, hey, I made a commitment to Alex, except it's not his guy. When you know Craig Breslow, you know that he's going to want his guy. If you know the Red Sox, if they have an unsuccessful season, they're going to be perfectly fine with firing Alex Cora because they give Craig Breslow a guy. and they say to the fan base, we are making a difference, Alex will just look right in there and say, dude, it's just business. We're good. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.